Hi, my name's Mackenzie, and fun fact about me, I'm old enough that the most popular social media when I was in high school was MySpace. I have desperately tried to find my old profile to no avail, but I am so sure that whatever I'd find on there would cringe me out so badly I'd have no choice but to burn it all down. We all have a digital footprint, and the idea that anyone can find something I posted as a child is horrifying, including my Hillary Duff fan website. But actually, that website was incredible, and I am not ashamed of it. One person that is extremely unashamed of his digital footprint is Quu L. An interesting tidbit that I found out while researching this video is that Kwaku was actually born into a cult and is not sure what his actual age is.
Kwaku was actually born in a real religious cult on the East Coast, okay, to a polygamous father that had multiple wives. And because of that, the fact that he was a home birth, he doesn't know what his actual birthday is. He could be born in either, 1996 or 2000, right?
There's like documentation from 96 to like 2000 of every year. It's like crazy stuff.
So
I've been in contact with the Vital Records department to try to actually get and they're like, sorry, dude, we have no record of your real birth.
So he could be anywhere from between 24 to 28-ish. I'm not sure what age he has decided to go with now. I can't imagine not knowing my birthday. That sounds really frustrating. But I'm just letting y'all know the reason that I don't know how old he is because he's not quite sure himself. But he first came onto my radar when he was on the same dating show as my brother called Provost's Most Eligible.
I had to bring you some
Starbucks,
no coffee. Don't worry.
Oh, good.
I know you're a good BYU person like me, so.
Thank you. Well, good to see you again.
You too.
I went to Starbucks and I got her a vanilla beef wrap with caramel and just knew that would work. There's one thing about Utah or American girls at Starbucks and it always works.
By the way, Mormons, a PSA, Frappuccinos have coffee in them. Yes, all of them. Yes, the ones at Starbucks. Or else it would just be a milkshake. Sorry to burst your bubble, you are sinning. Anyways, I don't think this show is anything to be ashamed of. I'm just giving you some background of where you might have seen or heard of him before. Provost's Most Eligible was an independently produced series that was originally called Mormon Bachelor, but they were forced to change that name assumedly due to copyright. Although all the contestants were in fact Mormon. It kind of popped off on YouTube and had its own cult following there for a minute, although the pandemic happened right at its peak and it unfortunately lost its momentum after 2 seasons. My sweet brother Brandon is still single. If any LDS ladies happen to be watching this, he enjoys improv, does not have a podcast, and is a computer programmer. Did I mention he doesn't have a podcast? That feels like a win in the LDS dating world. Anyways, both my brother and Kwaku made the first round but got cut in the second, and I have no idea if they had any interactions with each other. That's just when Kwaku first came into my awareness. But Kwaku has been on the internet long before this beloved dating series, starting with some acting projects when he was in high school, and then in 2016 becoming a host on a YouTube channel called 3 Mormons, later renamed to Saints Unscripted. This channel is sponsored by the LDS Church through their More Good Foundation.
There's a double standard. Like if men can work out without their shirts on, the next obvious, if there's gender equality, why can't women work out without their shirts on?
You were just saying that they should cover up.
Exactly, that's why I'm saying men should cover up as well. Did you just punch me?
I'm sorry, I freaked out.
Okay, I was saying that men need to wear shirts if women are also expected to wear shirts. That's what I meant by that.
Kwaku, so you need to do Olympic boxing because the amount of wrestling.
Interestingly enough, Saints Unscripted has virtually erased Kwaku from all of their thumbnails of videos he is still in. But they still keep these videos up and monetize them, which is really bizarre to me. It seems like this happened because of one of the controversies Kwaku was in, which there are many, and they may have wanted to distance themselves. But this is pretty slimy, in my opinion, for them to do. They even took him out of the thumbnail of his own conversion story. It looks like once they were called out on this by Kwaku, that they restored it to its original thumbnail, but he's still taken out of all the other thumbnails of videos he's in, including the priesthood ban video. I think that's pretty messed up that they did that. But he did the show for about 3 years, and then was hired by Fair Mormon, now known as Fair Latter-day Saint, to create content for them tailored toward the Gen Z crowd. This new project was titled This Is the Show, which people promptly pointed out spelled out TITS. that Kwaku claims was just a happy accident. It was supposed to be a play on words of Brigham Young's "this is the place" phrase, and it was part of Fair's rebuttal to the CES letter and other criticisms of the church in a comedic way that many people, including members, found off-putting.
We're the hosts of This Is the Show, a channel dedicated to comedically taking down anti-Mormonism. Joseph didn't use a Ouija board to translate the Book of Mormon. And the CES letter was appropriated from time. The LDS ceremony, why does the close remember the half of you guys watched WWE and you believed it. Hey look, same number, different words, it must be fake. You want a PDF? I don't want to sound like a jerk here.
I mean, yeah, you do.
Yeah.
At first, Fair responded to the criticism by saying, "We do not seek to be unkind in these videos, but to be clear that the CES letter claims are dishonest and wrong, and to do so in a lighthearted way youth will consume. You will recall that Christ called people liars, hypocrites, vipers, white sepulchres, and sported a whip to cleanse a temple. Our young volunteers are simply sporting wit and humor." So they claim they were only doing what Jesus would do, but I don't remember Jesus being a prick. Maybe I read a different Bible. The backlash was so bad they ended up creating a FAQ page just for this show alone. This webpage no longer exists, but I found some of the text a Redditor saved. Thank you, Reddit. It says, "Question, but what if I don't like these videos? Answer, then watch something else." Kind of funny. These videos are targeted to a younger audience that isn't typically engaged or engaged for long by scholarly articles. You may not find the humor appealing. This type of humor sometimes captures the same type of mocking tone coming from the ex-Mormon community at the church and its doctrines. Remember, the ex-Mormon community calls the church the so-called church, or TSCC, and puts up podcasts attacking the apostles, calling their words dangerous. Not everyone will like this style, but when abusive tactics are used, sometimes they need to be called out unmistakably in a language its targets will recognize. So they say it's okay that they use a mocking tone because ex-Mormon Reddit calls the church the so-called church, while ignoring the fact that they call it that because leaders of the church use the phrase so-called before anything they don't like so much from the pulpit.
So-called Christian churches.
So-called Christians.
So-called experts.
The so-called needs of women.
So-called intellectuals.
So-called gays and lesbians. The so-called same-sex marriage situation.
So-called same-gender marriages.
So let's be clear about who was doing the mocking first, shall we? But just a short 4 months after its debut, all TITS videos were pulled from YouTube with zero explanation from Fair. The rumors are that some of the board members / big donors were not happy with this show, and money talks, so even after doubling and tripling down, they caved. I also found another production company Kwaku was involved with around the same time that seems to be his own company called Stone 16. This title is assumed to be based off of an independent movie called 16 Stones, which is a fictional movie about a group of Latter-day Saints trying to find one of the 16 Jaredite stones from the Book of Mormon. I found a closed fundraising page for this business, as well as a Twitter account that says, like, if Mormons had their own MTV, who's gonna tell them it's not 2003. But their website no longer exists, and all of their videos have been unlisted from YouTube, which means they're still up, but only if you have the link, but they won't show up in search results anymore, and they're not on Kwaku's channel page. So I only found a couple of them, including the infamous The End of John Dehlin video, which we will get to later, and another video called Atheism Sucks.
Let's be honest, atheism is boring. Christianity gave us the Sistine Chapel and Les Mis. Atheism gave us the RAR XD reply guy from your hometown who still works at 7-Eleven. Religion makes everything prettier. Atheism makes you Naruto run to lunch. But they always got their food first. It's way cooler to pray to Our Lady of Fatima than to find Fatima and say, "M'lady." And yes, that's a stereotype, but they make fun of us all the time. I mean, we get roasted, but so will they. Also, why do all YouTube atheists have long hair? I mean, TJ Kirk looks like Dog the Bounty Hunter, and Jimmy Snow looks exactly the way you think he would. And if they don't have beards, you recognize them from Toy Story.
According to their Indiegogo page, Stone 16 is a new network that creates videos, articles, films, music, and podcasts dedicated to the preaching of the gospel of Jesus Christ. With the growing rise of anti-Mormonism in media, we need an engaged, timely, artistic platform to faithfully and confidently explain misunderstood topics in church history, scriptures, and theology. We also need to galvanize the Latter-day Saint youth in artistic expression with entertainment value. I'm not sure why this project was shut down, but it seems to have ended around the same time that TITS did. Sorry, TITS is just a really great name for a show, and I love it, and I might steal it. But This Is the Show seemed to be the show that brought Quu L, Carden Ellis, and Brad Whitbeck together, who then went on to create the Midnight Mormons podcast, now known as Ward Radio, which brings us to today. Now, in a recent interview with Kara Burrell, Kwaku does not claim it as his podcast, denies being a co-host, and instead calls himself a regular guest, although he is listed on their website. He then goes on to say that the only reason people think he is right-winged is because he is on this podcast and that no one actually watches the show.
Ward Radio has a decidedly right-wing flair, we could say that. But if you watch that show, on nearly all of the topics that are political, I'm disagreeing with everyone. I don't think people watch it. They just see us three and they go, oh, Kwaku's a Republican, but I'm really not. Like, I don't, if you like, you know, listen to what I say.
Well, I watched the show, a lot of it. And no, Kwaku is not guilty by association. He is guilty of expressing extremely right-wing opinions and completely made-up statistics.
At least Playboy is celebrating beauty and people who are incredibly in shape. Because if I have to choose between my friends and even my children seeing models that are promoting being incredibly out of shape, that are promoting mutilating your body, that are promoting making yourself look disgusting on the sake of diversity, as opposed to actually just beautiful people who are in shape. This is the modern equivalent of the ancient, we are celebrating something beautiful. What is worse? The celebration and promotion of, okay, this is what beautiful bodies look like, or everybody is beautiful, and we're going to push this narrative until people literally die because they're grossly overweight and they're eating crap. I'm not trying to sound like an anti-feminist now, but also, let's be real for a minute. When the majority of suicides in the country are men and the majority of depressed people are men, I don't think women can continue to wave the banner. You get hired more than us. Though. You get hired more, you graduate faster, and you graduate more, and men are unhappy and women are happier.
And
okay, I'm sorry.
Repeat that
in
stat.
the United States dating world, under 35, 20% of men are sleeping with 80% of the women. Women retain the DNA.
Why do those women
the DNA
talk like
stays.
that?
The DNA, no, it doesn't.
Look it up.
Kwaku, what
Look it
kind of conspiracy theory have you gone down this time?
$50. Look it up
And
right
why
now,
do
Brad. This is where China failed. China creating TikTok to, you know, destroy the youth. Where it failed was COVID-19 got all of these young girls staying at home, making TikToks, hanging out with their younger siblings, realizing, I could do this for the rest of my life. Yeah. And now none of those women want to work. They realize the con. They have these good jobs. They're making a lot of money. They come back to their apartment and their boyfriend is playing video games.
Yeah.
And they're like, this should be reversed. You should be out working. I should be here making some cookies. My kids are watching Finding Nemo, and I'm lighting candles. That should be my life. But instead, it's not. And that's the life we want our girlfriends to have. That's what, like, I'm sorry, the non-loser dudes who aren't addicted to Call of Duty and porn, we literally are like, I literally make money. I'm not trying to be a jerk. I make a lot of money for my age, and it's literally because I want a hot wife who's taken care of. Like, that is ultimately my goal. Do you understand?
Yeah.
The Constitution is giving us the right to pursue life, liberty, and happiness. But what third wave feminism is doing is making sure you are getting none of those things. We just need to have a lot of kids, because ultimately that's where the battle is. Like, it does not matter. When you get down to it, those YouTube videos where it's an atheist and a Christian debating, well, actually, if you look at this, the translation of this means that none of that matters. Who's having the more kids? Because atheist guy, if you're not having enough kids, nothing you say ultimately matters, because that guy's going to outbreed you. And he's going to teach his 8 kids about Christianity, and you're going to teach your no kids about nothingness. So it does not matter. Cool kids are deciding that the anti-Mormon woke is lame and weird, and also ugly. I'm sorry, aesthetics matter more in this generation than any generation.
Oh.
And no, can I just be brutally honest for 1 minute? When your best friend growing up decides to gain all the weight in the world and get 900 piercings and dye their hair purple and start like getting the weird like super woke aesthetic,
and then blaming obvious reasons that they're not getting asked out on the patriarchy instead of poor personal choices,
or just like that they're unhappy and they're like, how come people? It's like, oh no, it's like, is that what it does? Like literally people are understanding the Lamanite marks now. Like, I understand. I totally get that you could identify them.
Yeah.
Because I can just walk into University Mall and I can go, that's a woke, that's a woke, that's a woke.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Oh no, I think it's
true.
I think it's actually
an actual conversation I had with a girl at the party. I was about to say her name and I shouldn't say her name. She was super pissed off because there's a boy. Well, there is a biological male who identifies as a woman, who has got permission to use the bathroom and locker room at her school, at her high school, right? And she was mad about it, and the moms were mad about it because she felt uncomfortable with it, right? Now, I know the whole gender, sex identity, that I'm no sociologist, right? So again, there's a complex field. I'm not even getting into that. What she was upset with was the fact that this is still a relatively new thing in society. And the fact that she wasn't even allowed to voice how it made her uncomfortable without all the woke anti-kids at her school bashing her on social media and making TikToks about her and calling her the worst things on Instagram, right? The fact that she felt that she was being looked at and watched by someone who was confused about their gender but still had a penis in the locker room with naked girls, she wasn't allowed to go vocally say, this makes me and a lot of the girls uncomfortable, without just absolutely getting wrecked.
On Word Radio, we debate those topics a lot. So, you know, when John goes and says, oh, Kwaku's a right winger, I'm like, where? How am I a right winger? I don't really see it.
I don't really see it.
Really? Kwaku, you don't see it? I would be more than happy to refresh your memory and send you the links to these videos where you engaged in fat phobia, anti-feminism, conservative conspiracy theories, overuse of the word woke, transphobia, and oh yeah, by the way, eugenics? Promoting the outbreeding of a group of people that you don't like is literal schnazi propaganda. None of those opinions you expressed were liberal in the slightest. And sure, Kwaku definitely has some extreme liberal opinions as well, but those don't cancel out his conservative ones. And I don't like labels either. He can be a little bit of both, which I think is what they call moderate, but you said you were a leftist anarchist, not me.
Generally speaking, I'd be considered pretty liberal and sometimes a left-wing anarchist on some subjects, like pretty out there.
Later, Kwaku says that people are allowed to change their opinions over time, which I agree with, but he didn't tell Kara I no longer stand by the things I said on Ward Radio. He said people don't actually watch Ward Radio, so they don't know how leftist I am. But what we're not gonna do is lie on the internet.
You really think someone would do that? Just go on the internet and tell lies?
And that lie he told about his political views was within the first 10 minutes of this interview, so I just knew I had to do some more research, and boy was I in for a ride. Being conservative is not a crime, but throwing parties during COVID sure was. And Kwaku made sure everyone knew he was anti-mask, anti-vax, anti-following the law. In fact, he was fined by the government for $10,000 for throwing one of these parties. He claims in a recent video that this particular party he was fined for was not actually thrown by his company, and it's a case of mistaken identity. But even if that's true, his company did throw a lot of parties during COVID that they were actively trying not to get busted for. They even moved one of their parties underground and did not reveal the location until the day of, and in the caption they said, quote, due to not being little bitches. Wow, you're so brave. Thank you for your service. He was interviewed by Quu TV about these parties, and oh my god, this interview is so much worse than what I thought it would be. I'll let him try to explain the interview.
Hey guys, Kwaku from Young and Dumb. So this past weekend, Provo was trending on Twitter. We got the city of Provo trending for something other than losing football games in Mitt Romney. And here's what's really cool. Our party was trending and everyone was talking about it. So much of the fact that Quu TV ran a hit piece on us. That's right, Quu TV, what your grandparents watched. I'm pretty sure Brigham Young watched them when he was 16. The point is, Quu TV ran a hit piece on us. They recorded me saying this.
Says they did contactless payment, had hand sanitizer, and made masks available, but few were seen in the videos and pictures. L says he thinks most people view the gathering positively.
If people are going to die, they're going to die. I don't think that they're going to in that way. I think that we're seeing a trajectory go down. But I was really saying this about Black Lives Matter and general protesting.
And, you know, right now in the state, gatherings of that size aren't really encouraged. You know, what would you say to someone who has a problem with the size or says you're potentially creating a hotbed of COVID?
I would say that all summer long, I think we've been fine with mass gatherings. You know, we had Black Lives Matter protests, spring and summer, every major city. You know, we had hundreds and hundreds of people together. And I noticed that a lot of the people that were getting upset at us, I would, you know, look at the messages they would send us and I'd go to their profile and I'd see that they were all at the rallies. So, like, you know, some people would say it's a hotbed of COVID, but if they're at rallies, and, you know, I'm black, so clearly I'm fine with the Black Lives Matter protest, right? But if they're at rallies and COVID can spread that way, or it could spread this way, it's not like COVID's partisan, you know? It's not like it says, hey, you know, I won't infect you if you got this view. I will infect you if you don't. If people are going to die, they're going to die. I don't think that they're going to in that way. I think that we're seeing a trajectory go down. And I think a lot of people don't really trust the CDC or the Institute of Health that much. And so we've seen some numbers that seem a bit and Yeah, that's really different.
Yeah, no. No, it doesn't. Literally nothing was taken out of context, so thank you for showing us all of that. Does anybody actually know what the word context means? I will give you $5 if you can define it. He literally pulled a Vanessa Hudgens.
Yeah, people are gonna die. It's just terrible, but like, inevitable?
He still said, yeah, if people die, they're going to die. And what he was talking about before does not change that sentence that he said. Before, he was saying it's fine if they don't mask up at his parties because people also weren't masking up at Black Lives Matter protests, which, yeah, they were. I went to a BLM protest and most people there were wearing masks. And no, I didn't attend every single rally, but pointing at someone else doing something people see as wrong and saying, well, they're doing it does not make it okay for you to do it. And he and I obviously have differing opinions about the pandemic, which some would argue we are still in. But again, that was a very Republican stance to take. He still has this company, which is appropriately named Young and Dumb, and they still throw parties and now festivals, which he boasts provide a good, wholesome time for Mormons who want to party without drinking or compromising their values. And they pray before every single event. I'm not kidding.
And I get to talk to them about faith and God and things like that. Because we pray before every single event. And so sometimes people will see it as they peek in and they're praying, like, what's going on? So I get to talk to a lot of people. And I've had hundreds of conversations.
Wait, you pray before every single
Young and Dumb event? Yeah.
Young and Dumb event?
We do a big group prayer, yeah.
You know, that's actually really cool, Kwaku.
Lord, please bless this derfing, that it will nourish and strengthen our body. That's not spirituality at that point, that's just superstition. Like praying will make the armpit crabs stop itching. Do y'all remember that? When arm crab pits broke out in Provo, Utah? Because I will never forget, you nasties. And he is delusional if he thinks people are not drinking at these parties. You can still come drunk, you can sneak in alcohol, but he thinks that these Mormon-appropriate parties are doing something to combat secularism.
We get to throw concerts, parties, all sorts of things. We have a clothing line, and it's just basically we're creating our own like Hollywood type thing in Utah, our own pop culture.
We get it. You're cool. Okay.
No, well, what's interesting is because I got super slammed at first by a lot of members of the church who were like, "Stop! You're stopping YouTube to do this." And I'm like, it's that. Trust me. You got to win the culture first. Just trust me. Anyway,
party culture is still party culture, you dingbat. How is this any different than eat, drink, and be merry? I'm glad y'all are having fun, but I don't think people are jumping into baptismal fonts after these or going home without dirty thoughts in their head. You're not providing an alternative to club culture, you're providing an appetizer to it. I'm seeing a very normal college party with a bunch of people who are about to lie to their bishops. What's the theme of their next party, you ask? Euphoria. You know, the God-honoring show Euphoria that promotes abstinence and praising the Lord. Also, the marketing for Young and Dumb is simply objectifying women. That's all. It's the one bullet point on their whiteboard. Fine hot girl, show boob, profit.
What did you think about the girls? Hella. You guys going to the next one? Yes. Hella ass, that's all I gotta say. Oh!
Hella ass and titties, baby!
Which shouldn't be surprising to anyone, considering how awful Kwaku is towards women.
one of the things I wish when they brought up the family proclamation, I wish they talked about this more. I really wish this was a big subject that we said, hey, look, men, stop being lazy, get some confidence, get a little more testosterone. Women, stop being selfish and be a little less hoey. And I guarantee our society would be better. I want to make clear, any girl watching this.
Okay.
Your value is based on the fact that you're a daughter of God. Daughter of the Most High. Sister of Adam. in Christ. However, I have some rules. And they're not rules I broadcast publicly.
Okay.
You know, I just, every time someone figures out about these rules, they get upset at me. That I have a body count rule. Okay?
Okay, and by for those that are not in the colloquial know, body count means
amount of boys she slept with.
Okay.
And not made out with, slept with.
Okay, and now I hear all of the feminists sharpening their pencils.
Now, mind you,
and all of those that hate you booting up their laptops to start blogging against you.
I'm not the guy. I'm not Andrew Tate, right? I don't go, if she sleeps around, that means she's disgusting. Why would I want to be with a woman who's a whore? Like, I don't do that, right?
Okay, yeah.
But I have a rhyme. If she's been with one, I will not shun. If she's been with two, that will do. But if she's been with three, it's a no from me.
Oh my gosh.
If she's been with four, well, she's a person. If she's been with five, the end is nigh. If she's been with six, she can't be fixed. If she's been with seven, she won't go to heaven. So I just want to make clear that's just how I view it. Because think about this.
Just to make sure, Midnight Mormon does not endorse this idea that nobody can be fixed. We believe in the eternal grace of Jesus Christ.
Yeah, but however, I ain't Jesus. I don't want a girl that a bunch of other dudes have had their Johnsons in. And you know what? I'm not crazy. That's not unreasonable. I don't tell girls, oh, sorry, you've slept with this many, it's not going to work. I will lie to them. I'll make up a different reason. She had slept with 13 boys at 18. Whoa. And I was like, your body count's 13? She's like, yeah, it's just really hard for me to say no.
What?
Sorry.
Or daddy issues or something. Jeez Louise, that's crazy.
13's, I was like, okay, that's a much. And so here's the other thing though. She had a really hard time connecting. She was like, dating is so hard for me. It's really, really hard for me to connect. So then I started asking my female friends who have body counts over 12, is it hard for you to connect? And they're like, it's really hard for me to connect with boys. Turns out it's in fact, the more boys a girl sleeps with, the harder it is for her to maintain a relationship for a longer period of time, and the harder it is for her to have an emotional attachment. So you're actually more likely to get divorced if the woman you're married to has a high body count.
And they come to a point that they literally change. They change who they were, and they become a new person through Christ. You gotta consider that.
I've changed. I'm different now. That time I was in a four-way with every football player from Appalachian State University on a Thursday night with 2 Jaegers in me. I'm different now.
Here's my gosh.
I grew up in the godless South. They were Christian girls with the little chacos and like the Nike shorts and the big t-shirts going to Chick-fil-A during their Bible studies. And then they go to Texas A&M. They go to University of Texas and they join a sorority and they get passed around like bowling shoes in a bowling alley.
Oh my gosh.
They are being just ran through like nobody's business. And suddenly they rededicate their lives to Christ around the end of their senior year when they want to get married to the chemical engineering major. And they always get resaved at a very convenient moment. Okay. If I'm the bishop I'm not going to say, oh, well, you can't call Sister So-and-so to be Relief Society president because she slept with this many boys 20 years. I'm not doing that. I don't care. I'm just saying, personally, me, why would I? Look. If I have a piece of gum, okay.
There we go. Here it is.
I'm chewing a piece of gum, all right? I can reform it the same way. But it doesn't change the fact that
there Kwaku,
do you want to chew that gum that's had a bunch of men's in it?
Dig it.
Pounding that orbit with their
through the atonement of Jesus Christ, that gum can be made whole again, okay?
You would not chew that gum!
I'm making these clips a lot longer than I usually would because I don't want to be accused of taking anything out of context. My favorite part is when he said he's not Andrew Tate because he doesn't call women whores, and then 2 seconds later reads a poem where he calls women whores. It's one thing to have personal standards and another to think a woman's value is based on her body count, which is a social construct created to demean women. It's clear that Kwaku thinks that women who enjoy casual sex are disgusting, but in this interview with Nuance Ho, he acknowledges that purity culture is harmful, but does not think that he is part of the problem.
Effectively, what you're saying is the ramifications as played out by the harmful parts of a purity culture can create people who are sexually unintelligent and even harmful, where then you have people that grew up repressed and then their minds are warped. And so now when they want to go wild, they end up becoming more on the RAPIST side. All right.
Mhm.
There's things like that happen. If those problems that we're talking about that come runway of institutional teachings by people of the elder generation, and that same elder generation is still running the other institution in this country, religious and non-religious, and they're having the same problems, to me, the answer isn't to say, well, that means Mormonism is bad. It's, again, the people running those institutions and that elderly generation whose mindset is still in the 40s and 50s does not translate to 2024. And so the ramifications of that are harmful for people.
It's the older generation. It's society that he very much participates in. You can't say that it's the boomers' fault for purity culture when you are still perpetuating it with slut shaming and creating harmful and untrue narratives around sex. And I can't even begin to get angry about him trying to separate Mormonism from the institution that is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which he gets more into later in this interview. Basically, he acts like Mormonism is a spiritual movement, like astrology or crystals, instead of an organized religion. And it pisses me off, but this video is already going to be way too long, and I don't have time to get into that. What I do have time for is to examine what Kwaku thinks sexual liberation actually means, and surprise, surprise, it's also something he made up.
Taylor Frankie Paul was soft swinging. Mormons in Utah are consistently involved in a lot of wild sexual escapades. So I'm being told at one point that the institution is that controlling, where it's robbing people of that agency and freedom to explore themselves. On the other hand, go to Provo or Orem. They're wild. If the institution is really that powerful and strong of robbing people of sexual liberation, why do we have a state full of people who are so overtly sexually liberated? That's my question. Like, if
You think explain why you think that.
I don't know how to.
You think Utah is a state that's overly sexually liberated? Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we Utah and has an extremely high rate of swinging. Utah has a lot of crazy sex stuff all the time. I don't know if we hang out in different circles. Not that I'm not going to sex parties, but like I don't like. And again, maybe it's I've lived in the Provo Orem area too long. Half those BYU students are having sex with each other. 90% of those UVU students are having sex with each other. I don't know. I literally, and I'm not trying to be a gaslighter or anything, I legitimately do not see that painted picture of a million uptight, like, yeah, in the Wilk on Tuesday on BYU campus, you'll find some of those people. The vast majority of members of the church who are below 30, I know, who are unmarried, are not virgins. Okay. They like I don't see that world crafted.
Sexual liberation does not just mean that people are having sex. It means people, particularly women, are having sex without shame and without judgment. According to this definition, sexual liberation is derived from a social movement in the 1960s that challenged the norms of behavior related to sexuality and sexual relationships throughout the United States. The movement was created to remove the guilt or judgment that comes with freely meeting sexual needs. It is an ideology that is constantly changing with the environment and requires an open mind. People having sex is not the problem. The problem is that Book of Mormon teaches that it's a sin next to murder. Except Kwaku thinks this is a misinterpretation of the scriptures, which no, it's not, because even in the heading of this chapter, it says quote, sexual sin is an abomination, and church leaders have made it very clear that this is what this means. But I'm so glad the church has Kwaku, so he can tell the prophets and apostles that they don't actually speak on behalf of God, which is something we can both agree on. So the Mormon church teaches that sexual sin is next to murder, whether Kwaku agrees with that or not. You can't take the sacrament, you can't go to the temple, you can't pray in church or have callings if your bishop thinks that your sexual sin was grievous enough. The reason that all of these Mormons are having premarital sex is this cool trick they learned called lying to their bishop, because super special discernment doesn't exist. I personally know of a married couple where she was the Relief Society president of a YSA ward, and her fiance were banging like bunnies before they got married in the temple. They knew they weren't supposed to be doing that if they wanted to get sealed in the temple, so they both lied to their bishop and no repentance process took place. It's crazy how anyone can be Mormon if you just lie. If they didn't feel shame about what they did, they wouldn't have been lying to their religious leaders or their families and would have been very open. But these things aren't happening in broad daylight. They are happening under an umbrella of shame and guilt. But Kwaku's source that he cites as proof that people in Utah are sexually liberated is Taylor Frankie Paul, the Mormon influencer who was arrested for domestic violence after a night of drinking. Taylor is not ashamed of a lot of things, and she is what we call an outlier, an exception to the rule. Her soft swinging was a shameful secret until she blew up everyone's spot on the internet, and then all of her friends were in denial about it. She was absolutely raked over the coals by members for putting her lifestyle on the internet. Let me know if you guys want a video about Taylor Frankie Paul, because she's still posting content, and I don't know if anyone else cares except for me, but we can make that happen. But if Utah and Mormons were sexually liberated, her coming out with that information would not have been a big deal at all. But they're not, so it was. And one of the more egregious takes that came out of this interview was Kwaku saying that the Mormon church doesn't have a problem with predators because every institution has that problem.
If I can't find that solely in Mormonism, to me that says that can't be a Mormon problem. And the real solution isn't necessarily to say, okay, well, this will stop if the LDS church is destroyed. Because let me tell you, at Florida State, I guarantee you there are a lot of RAPISTS out there, okay? At UC Berkeley, I guarantee you there are a lot of RAPISTS out there. So, and there's sexual inefficacy and there's sexual addictions all throughout the country that don't stem from Mormonism at all, but are the same things we say played out in Utah and Idaho and Arizona. So if that's the case, then stopping the institution won't stop that.
Do you want to know the difference between committing a sexual crime at college versus a church? The college is required to report it, and the church is not. And the Mormon church is not supposed to be the equivalent of a frat house. It's supposed to be a safe place for women and children, and it has proven to be the opposite because of their bullshit non-reporting policies. But the Mormon church welcomes predators with open arms. And they say, come here, buddy. Are those victims being mean to you? We'll set them straight. We'll even pay them off if we have to. Bloodlet.org, bitch. Look it up. Ironically, I found out that Kwaku has SA and harassment allegations against him. Let me be clear, these are just allegations, nothing went to court, and it was all through BYU's Title IX office, and I am not stating anything as fact. I'm just going to report what I found, and it was very hard to find information about this. So in 2019, Kwaku was accused of harassment and reported to BYU's Title IX office. Every college has a Title IX office that deals with reports of SA of their students. He has also been accused of harassment by several women of color, which I mentioned because apparently Kwaku was tweeting up a storm around this time and said it was only white women accusing him, which was not true. And there is at least one person that accused him of assault. Now, I have never spoken to any of these people, and I don't know what actually happened. What I do know is that a student named Calvin Burke was dragged into this somehow, and Kwaku went nuclear on him. in my opinion. Calvin is an openly gay member of the church and was a student of BYU at this time. Calvin posted about the situation on his Instagram, saying, "This semester I was reported to the BYU Honor Code office by a student I had never met in retaliation for comforting my friends during their sexual harassment investigation, simply because I was their friend and because I am gay. It was a very scary experience knowing my educational future was at stake because of the prejudiced actions of another student. I am grateful that BYU's Title IX investigators intervened and I was not harmed in the long run. Thank you, BYU Title IX." And he's holding a sign because there was a really big protest going on at that time about BYU's homophobic honor code, but that had nothing to do with Kwaku. It just kind of happened to coincide. Here is what Kwaku has said about the situation.
They had Title IX, honor code, and BYU police investigating me for claims that they made up on the spot. At the same time, they were telling a bunch of people that I had all these female victims. And I have 0 female victims. So then they go and they create a Title IX a file. And they say Kwaku has a bunch of female victims, and next week they're coming in to testify how much of a rapist he is. And I'm like, what are you talking about? No, those victims don't exist. But all it takes is one complaint for Title IX to open a file against you. So then they were able to go to the public and say Kwaku has an active Title IX file, which was technically true because they faked it. So Title IX is waiting for all these women to come forward, and guess what? 0 women come forward. 0 women come in to say that I'm an rapist. I have the largest honor code file in BYU history. I was investigated by BYU Honor Code, Title IX, and BYU Police and found innocent.
Because Calvin Burke accused you of a bunch of fake crimes,
they accused me of a bunch
right?
of crazy, sex crimes.
So Calvin Burke is
wild.
Calvin Burke's accusing Kwaku of a bunch of fake stuff.
Just by the way, he was not proven innocent. The case was just dropped because there wasn't enough evidence. Those are very different things. And from what I can gather, Calvin was not the one making the original allegations. He was simply defending his friend, who was the one making the allegations. And Kwaku decided to make his life hell. He reportedly accused Calvin of lying about his own childhood SA and even attended a court hearing of Calvin's that had nothing to do with Kwaku. What the fuck? Kwaku went so far as to allegedly make a fake Tinder account with photos of Calvin, take screenshots of this, and report him to the honor code to try to get him in trouble. But weirdly enough, Kwaku says that Calvin is the one that made a fake Tinder account of Kwaku and tried to get him in trouble with the honor code.
Okay, oh boy, one thing they did, they made a fake Tinder account of me and were swiping up on men, all right? Yeah. So they're trying to frame me for being gay, and then at the same time...
Wait, who's the they that was making a fake Tinder
this
profile?
network of Evan Jones and Calvin Burke and Julia White and all these people. There was
this
cabal.
Network of,
I have no idea who's telling the truth here, but after all my research and learning about who Kwaku is as a person and his ability to lie on the spot, I am more inclined to believe that Calvin was the one being framed by Kwaku in retaliation for the Title IX situation. I don't know if that's true, that's just my theory, but in the end, both cases against them were dropped. And the alleged victims of Kwaku have stayed silent about this since then, which I'm just guessing he has threatened to sue them at this point. That's also just a theory though. I'm not saying that's what happened, because I also don't want to be sued, and Kwaku has made a lot of money from his Jesus grinding parties. But I might have found the biggest lie that Kwaku has told his entire time on the internet. And I'm not really seeing anyone talk about this because it's an uncomfortable subject, but it's one I'm very familiar with and feel qualified to talk about. Kwaku has recently been very open about his mental health struggles and his sewer slide attempt just over a year ago in October of 2022 and landed him in a psych ward. I was pretty taken aback when I saw him talking about this because this isn't the first time he has talked about it. It's just the first time he's been honest about it. At least I hope he's being honest. It's really hard to tell with him sometimes because in November of 2022, Ward Radio posted an episode titled "Kwaku was kidnapped by a mental hospital?" And in this video, he talks about how he was wrongfully held against his will, and he creates an entirely different story than what he is telling now.
Well, I spent a week at One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. This place has a reputation for stealing people. I mean, I don't know how to phrase it. So I go into the hospital to get and that's the part I want bleeped out.
No, I got it.
So as I'm there, they ask she's like, okay, well, do you have anxiety? Are you feeling anxious about XYZ? And anybody in a hospital for any reason is going to feel anxious. Okay. So I say, yeah. Now, I didn't say, I have crippling anxiety. This is the worst thing I've ever experienced in my entire life. I don't know what to do. I can't think straight. Everything. Like, I didn't give one of those. I'm not on meds or anything, right?
Yeah.
Then from there, they have the caseworker who talks to you, and they have the caseworker and they ask questions. Do you have a history of depression? And but the way they ask the questions is a way where you have to say yes. You think you might just be talking to someone to kill the time, or because they want to get like an actual let's figure out what's going on, not because they're looking for keywords to get you to a place that they can make more money off you. And that's what these things are. So now when you go to a hospital, I admonish you not to answer these questions in an honest way. Like,
oh my gosh.
No, I don't think you should, because
just have doctors you trust.
Yes,
work with doctors
I mean,
you
I'm
trust.
sorry. In 2022, those doctors are few and far between, right? The cheating process is one of the most criminal things, unconstitutional things I've ever seen in my entire life. It is the piece of paper that allows doctors and caseworkers and psychiatrists to arrest you. Now, when you say that to people, the first reaction is, doctors can't arrest people. They can. Doctors can arrest people with this cheating. So if a caseworker writes down Brad Whitbeck, I think Brad Whitbeck is a danger to himself and others. There is no jury. There is no trial. You will be taken by nurses and police to a psych ward against your will forcefully.
You have to have two doctors agree, right?
Oh, yeah, you have to have two doctors agree. There's no time frame, though. So,
and by the way, it's not hard to find two doctors that are okay with a kind of corrupt process. That's like if Al Capone and, I don't know, Easy Eddie happen to agree on something.
So the fact of the matter is that's what happens. And then from there, once they check enough boxes of keywords, they can take you to a psych ward. And they take you in an ambulance so you can't get out. And they literally will strap you down. And so I'm in this ambulance bed, no injuries, no bleeding, nothing. He wants to bring up medications. Look, I'm not taking medication. I don't believe in that. I don't believe in it, especially because I'm already seeing what's happening to the people around me. And that's where he gets really upset. And he goes, I went to med school. I'm a doctor. Okay, I know more about this than you do. I don't care, dude. I'm not taking your, none of your credentials are going to make me take your woo-woo juice. It's not going to happen, okay? What matters here is the fact that I should not be here. I have a lot of responsibilities, and keeping me here against my will is immoral and wrong and is going to be far more detrimental to me when I leave. By the way, some of the nurses there are BYU students, and I'm talking to them, and you can tell they're like, yeah, dude, I don't think you should be here. I'm like, yeah, I know. One guy was like, dude, you were on Saints Unscripted. I'm like, yeah, I was on Saints Unscripted. You're not supposed to say that you recognize me. It's like, bro, why are you here? I'm like, they all knew I shouldn't have been there, but they have to play the role. But they're like one guy was like, you're not allowed to have a pen in here. And I'm like, bro, it's like, it's fine, keep it. It's like, yeah. They knew. The homies that were there knew because they weren't corrupted yet by the system. This is just how our freedom is being taken away, and medical tyranny is real, and we have to do something about it. But these guys are getting away with this just criminally satanic dark stuff. Cardin, you might be mentally unhealthy. All of Utah is mentally unhealthy. It's cold and overcast for 8 months out of the year. You think we should just lock everybody up? In fact, where did that attitude come from? That's literally how they justified putting people in literal camps. That idea was mainstreamed, came from communist Europe. It came from Stalin, and it came from Germany, this idea that you must institutionalize people that your accredited professionals have deemed to be mentally unstable. Yeah. Unless you're literally like the bully kid from It, that was killing his dad, and he's being controlled by the clown.
Yeah.
There's not a reason for you to be kept in this way.
Dude, I'm sorry to interrupt.
I don't care if you're depressed or suicidal or any of those things. None of those things warrant what actually goes on here.
Yeah.
My recommendation is this. I get that certain people need mental help, and people have a lot of issues, and they need help.
Mm-hmm.
After my experience at a psych ward, I'm sorry,
I'm not going to trust what the professionals and the experts say, because those are the exact same people that were abusing patients and those freaking teenage girls. I know the church doesn't like them. Go to a freaking energy healer if that's gonna help. Okay, go do the freaking the auditing sessions. Go do
to
whatever.
a psychic before you go
Literally,
to that.
these people view you as a cash crop. You are an object, a bag of blood and bones that they can test their medication on.
Kwaku and his friends spend the entire hour demonizing mental health, calling psychiatry evil, saying his constitutional rights were violated, that he didn't need to be there, and he pushed all of these conspiracy theories just lying through his teeth. For what? One thing I want to mention is that Kwaku brings up a lawsuit against Universal Health Services, which owns the hospital that he went to. They were required to pay over $122 million to the government to settle false claims related to keeping people in behavioral health hospitals unnecessarily. So I am not saying that this has never happened. I get that he didn't want to go public about what just happened, but oh my God, don't talk about it at all then. Be honest with your friends off camera and say, hey, I'm not ready to talk about this yet. Can we talk about something else? But no, he sits down and makes up an entire story. He tells anyone else struggling not to get help. And this episode is still up as of me posting this. Instead of making it a moment where he could have brought attention to men's mental health like he's currently doing, he did the opposite. Any of his fans watching that episode that had depression were probably thinking, wow, that sounds terrible. I'm not gonna go to any doctors, tell them I'm depressed because I don't want to get held against my will in the loony bin. For reference, I have been admitted to a psych ward 3 times. I am mentally ill with a capital I, specifically with depression and suicidal ideation. What's extra ironic is that my first stay was in the same hospital that Kwaku was in, called Provo Behavioral Hospital, which has now been renamed to Aspen Grove Behavioral Hospital. I was there for 9 days, about 8-ish years ago. I know what these places are like, and they're not a vacation. They exist to keep you alive and get you back on your feet. And that's what happened each time I was admitted. For Kwaku to create a false narrative that the system is corrupt and they don't want to help you after going through all of that and getting help is so confusing to me. And even according to what he's saying now, I still don't think he's being entirely truthful.
When you find yourself in a psych ward, you're in a padded. I've been in a padded room. I've been in a straight jacket.
Yeah, so psych wards don't use straitjackets anymore because it's not the 60s and they are considered inhumane. Unless he was extremely violent and attacking staff, he was never restrained at all. He took pictures while he was there. Hey, how do you do that when you can't use your hands? And he was able to draw a bunch of pictures about how much he hated being there. And maybe there was a point where he did think he was there for a bit too long and he was anxious to get back to his life, but he did need to be admitted according to what he is saying now. And maybe people don't think saying you were in a straitjacket is a big deal, but it's definitely still stigmatizing mental health in one of the worst stereotypes, and it's just such an unnecessary embellishment. Kwaku just tends to do that. He's very dramatic and extreme in the way he talks. So, like I said, it's kind of hard to tell what details are true and what aren't. The clip about the straitjacket was taken from a video that he put on his Young and Dumb channel, ironically titled The Truth, where he talks about what led to his depression and his unaliving attempt.
It's hard to describe what happens when, in the public eye, you're made into a villain, and then inwardly, everything is falling apart and you feel complete emptiness. The word it really is emptiness. There's not a better word to use. I know what it's like to have 100% no hope. I know what it's like to be targeted and ridiculed. I know what it's like to be misunderstood. I know what it's like to have your name and character used as a launching point for popularity. When your humanity is totally taken from you and you are seen as nothing but a check waiting to be written upon or a punching bag for social material, you're being dehumanized. When you're talking to a mental health professional and you're telling them the story and they start tearing up, you think maybe this was worse than I realized. Yeah. I'm in a horrifically dark place and everyone's asking, why'd you get institutionalized? What happened? What happened? What happened? And I don't have the courage to tell them the truth. I had to kind of obfuscate the information and be not that clear about it because you're embarrassed. And, it's even hard to say those words. I tried to commit suicide. You can't even say the sentence. It takes you a year to be able to actually say it without stuttering, because that's where I was.
So that is the only time I've seen Kwaku address what he calls obfuscating the truth, because he was embarrassed about what happened, which I totally understand. But you didn't obfuscate the truth. You ripped the truth a new asshole. You had a storyline, characters, plot twists, and you sensationalized the shit out of your experience on the internet to push a false narrative and get people all riled up. One of the few things I found that were truthful was he seemed to have a doctor that wasn't really that great. After reading his reviews, it seems like he's not really that nice, which is not great for a mental health professional. But not every person he came into contact with was like that doctor, as you just saw him describing someone tearing up when Kwaku was telling his story, and he could have chose to not talk about what happened on camera. But instead, he went on a huge smear campaign against the psychiatric field on YouTube, on Twitter, and he did a huge disservice to those struggling with mental illness. But now he wants to turn around and be a champion for the community.
In regard to suicide, we need to have that conversation, because we have been completely wrong about digital harassment, digital bullying in the way it's connected to suicide. We haven't created the new mindset that can save lives yet, and we have to do that. Suicide culture is a society or environment whose prevailing social attitudes make it common for public ridicule or social ostracizing for social gain, leading to an increase in suicide or suicidal ideation, especially among teenagers and young adults. And it's not as if we're a state where this doesn't happen weekly. This is such a regular, common occurrence. People's entire mindset has been morphed to see other human beings as a means to an end for digital popularity. And the way they get this digital popularity is a public crucifixion. I use the word crucifixion on purpose. If your mindset is completely morphed, where you believe public ridicule for social popularity is okay, who would you have been? Would you have been in the crowd that's mocking the Lord, or would you have been of the small band of followers that's grieving? The problem is, and this is the thing no one wants to admit or talk about, but someone has to say it or else nothing's gonna change. We have people that know we have a suicide culture and they don't care, because popularity matters more to them. Likes matter more than life. And that is so unthinkably pernicious and dark that isn't going to change until we ourselves decide to hold each other accountable, and we eliminate suicide culture, and, well, we hold those responsible for we hold self-harm promoters responsible for what they're trying to do. Nasty-spirited people have always existed, but this is the first time in humanity where being nasty-spirited gets rewarded to the public by likes, by shares, and by brand deals, okay? That's what makes this especially egregious. You can dogpile somebody on social media, and you can even do it anonymously, but then you can take those likes and you can put them to creating an influencer, a public image, and you can say, come follow me because of that. We all know to be kind. We're taught that when we're babies, but human beings aren't kind. So obviously, no, it's not everyone, but anybody who likes or engages with material or content like that, anybody who sees it happen, sees their friends doing it, and just lets it go because, they don't want to get involved in drama or whatever, that's called the bystander effect, or the spiral of silence theory. You're afraid of doing something about it because you don't want to become a victim yourself. So what it is, it's silent gaslighting. And it's almost a form of silent digital blackmail. Because you see, oh, they've done this to this person. If I tell them to stop, will they do it to me? You are more afraid of a ratio or losing a bad friend than you are somebody dying. Can you really say you believe we're all children of God if that's how your mindset is?
Is your jaw on the floor yet? Because it should be. Pot, meat, kettle. Everyone raise your hand if you've ever been victimized by Quu L. First of all, the audacity to bring up the bystander effect when he's on the Ward Radio podcast with Carden Ellis. Carden being gay is the same thing as having cancer Ellis. Women critiquing the church are comparable to Al-Qaeda Ellis.
But my question to people saying this argument is, well, what would you do with Jesus when he came down and he called 12 dudes as his apostles? Would you say your church is fake? You're full of crap? Your atonement isn't real? I'm not accepting it until you say her name!
Wow.
You know? This is literally...
You're right!
This is spiritual terrorism. This sounds like a freaking Al-Qaeda manifesto until you say the name of whatever my version of radical Islam is, and you say whatever my slogan is on my black flag. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not going to accept... I'm not going to accept...
He is constantly spitting vitriol towards ex-Mormons or even just Mormons he doesn't like. And he says something unhinged in every single video I've ever seen of him. I've never seen Kwaku calling out Carden for not being nice, but I have seen Carden calling out Kwaku for not being nice. Secondly, the list of people Quu L has bullied on the internet is endless. He has spent 8 years talking shit, ridiculing people, attacking people with ad hominem arguments, and just pissing a lot of people off. Also, have I myself participated in ad hominem attacks? Absolutely. I'm pretty sure I called Kwaku a dingbat in this video. I call people dum-dums. I don't have the moral high ground here. I'm not above it. I am just simply holding him to his own standards. And I think there is a line you don't cross. And he has continuously crossed that line, no matter how many times people have asked him to stop. When you create an entire video named The End of John Dehlin, were you considering John's mental health at all? I myself made a video criticizing the Mormon Stories podcast, and I am no stranger to criticizing any other ex-Mormons or anyone who wants to catch these hands. But when you were making violent memes about John Dehlin and basically telling him and everyone else to chill the fuck out, where was this mindset? Do I think John should have called 911? No. And it seems like even though he said he did, it doesn't look like that he ended up doing that. That whole thing was a shit show. But John's anxieties about these memes of him dying were valid, and you created that dog pile. It seems to be a tit for tat with them, as John and someone else he was interviewing on his podcast said some really racist things about Kwaku at one point, which he later apologized for. And Kwaku mentioned that him and John had a good talk after their Jubilee debate, so it seems like neither of them harbor any ill will against each other, maybe? I don't know. And it says a lot that I myself was nervous about posting this, because I've seen how him and his fans react to criticism, and they don't react well. So although he has this whole anti-bullying campaign, which he seems to think he alone has discovered, even though anti-bullying campaigns have been a thing since the 90s, seems like a crock of shit. He's like, we as a society need to be better. Who is we? You need to be better. You are the one who has been and is still currently part of the problem.
You had Evan Jones and his evil wife Julia going on.
Okay, I don't know who these people are, so you're
I hope he
responsible.
sees this.
You're responsible for your comments and you alone.
Look, I love everybody. I love everybody. But I'm gonna quote Louis C.K. If Evan Jones was falling off a cliff and I was Superman and I could rescue him, I would rescue him to drop him from higher. Like that's how evil these people are. Anyway, so
that was like 2 weeks ago. Okay, I don't know who this person is that he's talking about either. It seems to be related to his Title IX situation, but to say that self-harm promoters need to be punished, meanwhile telling someone that you hope that they die? Hello? I kid you not, this was posted yesterday as of me recording this, April 3rd, where they're reacting to an RFM episode and Kwaku makes fun of how he looks.
I know it's ad hominem to say this. I understand.
Okay.
He's looking old. Isn't he? He's looking old.
Now, Kwaku, I was thinking the same thing.
No, not like oh, he's decrepit, but like you can hear in the voice, you can see
the dark mood lighting. I don't think has helped him, is what you're trying to say.
No, he looks from the debate to now. He's looking older.
Is it the beard? Maybe. Maybe it's the beard because he didn't have the beard during the debate.
Like you can see it in the posture.
Or maybe it's just the cruel hypocrisy. Like could be just me.
How old is RFM? I don't know. I thought he was in his like maybe 60s.
I don't know, but at this point, I think he's in his episode 3, Emperor Palpatines. But get that, Palpatines? I gotcha.
One of the comments under this video says, Kwaku is incapable of making criticism about somebody's ideas without talking about how they look. And I absolutely agree. Like, it was just such an unnecessary comment, especially his friend Cardin comparing him to a Star Wars character to also make fun of his looks. Like, criticize his ideas and the words he's saying without insulting him physically challenge. I haven't made a single comment about Kwaku's physical appearance this entire video. Turns out it's not hard to do. It's just absolutely hypocritical to me to talk about anti-bullying and continue to say things like this. But it's do as I say, not as I do with Kwaku. He talks out of both sides of his mouth, and that is what gets him into trouble. And if any of you try to tell me he was just kidding and I am being sensitive, I swear to God. In the tweet that initiated this interview between Kwaku and Kara, he said, quote, "They watch Ward Radio, which is a comedic bro show, and assume this is the actual extent of my beliefs. Also, people that critique you do watch the show, although you contradicted yourself in Kara's interview by saying that people just don't watch the show."
I don't think people watch it.
So people don't watch a show. Oh no, wait, they do watch it, but then they just take you too seriously. Which is it? By calling Ward Radio a comedic bro podcast, Kwaku is hiding behind irony to deflect from any criticism. And I'm so tired of it. If you are continually having to tell people that you are just kidding, how are we supposed to take anything you say seriously? If it's just a comedy podcast that doesn't portray your actual beliefs, then why do you get mad when people don't know what you believe? I think when you mask everything with humor, the line between your beliefs and your jokes become indistinguishable, and that's not the audience's fault, it's your fault for not being clear. I am sarcastic in almost all of my videos, and I have gotten shit for it. I have multiple comments telling me they can't stand to listen to me because of my sense of humor. So something that me and Kwaku may have in common is that our style of content is not for everyone. Some people think he is rude and obnoxious, but some people think I'm rude and obnoxious. And I am under no illusion that Kwaku or his friends give two flying fucks what I think about them. But I think punching down humor is objectively gross, and the only people who find it funny are the ones who are sitting on top of the people they are punching. But I'm not calling Kwaku out because I don't think he's funny. I'm calling him out because he has a bad habit of not taking accountability, and those who have tried to hold him accountable in the past have been decimated for it. His Instagram page says he is a professional yapper, but I say he is a professional bullshitter. I do hope Kwaku is doing well mentally, and I truly hope he can evolve. I also think he just needs to take a long break from the internet. It really is the Wild West out here. By the way, I did come across a Twitter account that is dedicated to making fun of Kwaku, and whoever's in charge of that account, you are a giant loser. That is loser behavior. It's not critical analysis. Literally, the account is just being racist and homophobic and making fun of his mental health. Like, it's just disgusting, and I don't think that's okay either. But when you are a public figure and you put yourself on the internet, there's always going to be trolls and people saying insane things. I'm convinced that I could be posting about puppies or making cupcakes and people would still find a way to send me awful messages and comments. Okay, I get it. I know what I signed up for. I know exactly what I am doing, and you kind of have to be prepared to take the bad with the good. But like, if you're telling people not to do something, you best be sure that you are not also doing it. Yes, please leave all of your ad hominem attacks about me in the comments below. I cannot wait to read them, and I am sure they will add so much substance to this conversation. Say goodbye to Trixie and Rexy, and I will see you guys later.